Good evening, everyone. I'm your host, comedian, magician, Danny Whitson. But it's all tricks aside, because tonight we're turning the paranormal into the normal. Join me as we explore the gray areas of reality. We're going to talk all things paranormal, UFOs, ghosts, cryptids, and aliens, and see how it's all connected. This podcast is brought to you by the Experiencer Support Association, and we are live. So if you're an experiencer yourself, or you're just plain nosy, be sure to send me your question and subscribe to the podcast. Now, get ready, because it's going to get deep. No, really, we're going to go way out there, because this is Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. What's happening, my paranormal junkies? Welcome to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, and I'm your host, Danny Whitson. Guys, we got a very interesting show for you this evening, but first, I got to say we are broadcasting live from the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 105.3 FM on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. All right, guys. Well, I hope everyone has had a fantastic week so far. We were off last week, so we totally went a whole week for my junkies. So I'm sure you guys are just dying to get your paranormal fix in, and I think we ought to be able to take care of that for you tonight. But before we dig into that, we got to touch base with somebody. He's the man behind the scenes. Too nice to be mean, Mr. Chris Green.
Hey, guys. How are you?
Hey, Chris. What's happening, man?
Not much. I've had a week.
Had a week. Uh-oh. What's going on?
So the power's been out since about Saturday at about 5 o'clock.
Oh,
and decided to come on about a half hour before this show started. So that's a good thing.
Well, that's awful that the power's been out.
Yeah.
So what caused that to happen? Was it the big storm you guys get?
We had a nice storm, and it took down the power lines about 100-kilometer radius around me.
Oh, wow.
So all the way to Barrie to, and Perry Sound's supposed to get it tomorrow. So
now,
that sucks.
Were you still having to rely on heat up there?
Well, I had a gas stove, so we were fine on that. We had a barbecue, so we could still cook. And the house was about 65 to 68 degrees.
There we go.
So I had it up to 73 the one day. Nice and toasty.
Nice
No, I had a generator to do the the essentials, fridge, freezer, and sub pump. So, nothing flooded.
Well, I'm glad you guys have made it there. So, and you got you're back you're out of the dark ages now, though, correct?
I'm out of the dark ages, finally. I said there one day, I was like, let there be light. And of course, the light turned on.
Man. So no TV. It's Saturday, and today's Tuesday.
I actually said that, and I said, Lord, let there be light, and I went like this, and the light turned on.
So I guess you had to have conversations with people there for a few days.
Oh,
was that rough?
Yeah, I had a couple.
Well, that's good. That's good. Well, all right, man. Well, I'm glad everything worked out. Anything spooky happened during those days with no power?
Nah, nothing really spooky.
Nothing really spooky. Just no electricity, no Netflix, nothing fun to watch. Probably had to play some board games and have some.
I read a couple books.
Conversations. You did read a book?
Yeah, I read a book.
What'd you read?
I read. I don't have it with me. It was something to do with Freemasonry.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I tell you what, man, I am going to get this show on the road. Like I said, we've got an interesting guest today, and and actually not a whole lot to say beforehand to get him in here. So I tell you what, Mr. Chris, if you will, we're going to send you back behind the scenes, man.
Oh.
All right, guys. We got an interesting. We do got an interesting guest. He just popped right on in here. Here he is. He goes by D, and I believe he is a former crop circle maker. Is that correct here, D?
That's right, Danny. Yep.
Awesome. Well, I tell you what, D. I'm going to kind of leave the table open here for you to share what you do. Feel comfortable here sharing with our guests. So if you don't mind, maybe tell a little more about what you used to do and kind of what's
cool.
going on now.
Yeah, I'll just give you a preamble. It's very easy. I've always had an interest in the paranormal and UFOs since I was a kid. I don't really know where it came from. There was no history of it in my family. I just was really interested. When I saw Close Encounters, I was like 11, and I just thought it was like the craziest thing I'd ever seen. But I kind of thought it was like I'd remembered something. It was like it tapped into my psyche a little bit, and I started to read a lot of the UFO literature, mainly like Jack Vallée and John Keel and Johnny Randall's and the Majestic 12 stuff. And in the UFO casebooks every year, they'd have like the UFO sightings, but they started to put pictures of crop circles in there. And they were like very simple single discs, it looked like a UFO had come and pressed itself into the corn, it looked like a landed UFO. And some of them had like these 4 tiny little satellite circles around the edges that looked like the craft from the day the Earth stood still, with the landing gear. And so people started to say, well, this is like landed UFOs, and they've like pressed into the corn and flown back up again. And there was a precedent in Australia. There was a precedent because we had something called the tally nests in the 70s, which is the same thing. So we started to see these pictures of these like single pressed crops, these single circles. And then it got really complicated because there was like the Led Zeppelin cover. I don't know if you've seen that, where it's like it's a dumbbell connecting 2 circles. There's like a door key coming off of it, and like it obviously didn't look like a UFO. But unfortunately, the link between the two things was so entrenched in the public psyche that people said, "Oh, it's not a UFO. That's obviously a message from our space brothers." There was this really clunky change, where they still try to associate it with being UFOs. And I become really interested, and I thought, I didn't know what it was. I thought it was like, I didn't know what it was. So I travelled down to Wiltshire where they all are, and I visited like 40 in the space of like sort of 3 months, because the season is mainly from like sort of June till sort of September, and I still was none the wiser. But then I started to hear reports from people that made them, and they were reporting strange things. They were reporting seeing lights in the sky, and they were reporting very strange synchronicities, and they were reporting dreams, and there seemed to be some sort of other consciousness of force here. And I looked on these people as pranksters and hoaxsters, and I hated them. My opinion was, the mystery was deep enough. You've got the magician with the cups under the balls. The hoaxsters were coming and just adding another 10 cups. We saw them as a nuisance. But then I started to hear more and more stories about strange things that were happening while people were making crop circles. And I was invited out to go and help make one. And I promised myself that I wouldn't ever do it again unless something weird happened. And nothing weird happened until the end. So when we finished the circle, I thought, well, this is a waste of time. These guys are just jokesters. All these stories are absolute rubbish. They're just like kidding people, and they've got their egos and this and that. And then when we finished the circle, I saw a single flash at the very edge of the circle we just made, and I thought it was somebody taking a photograph, because it's illegal to make crop circles. You can get prosecuted by the farmer. So I thought, oh shit, this is really bad. Somebody's taking photos. It's shish. I'm in trouble now. I'm gonna lose my job. All this stuff. But we saw this single light, and then it multiplied into a dozen lights, and then 30 lights, and then it came around the perimeter of the circle and just encircled all this myriad of lights. It's sort of encircling the entire circle. And I referred to it in my Substack as the giant necklace. And I said to our team leader, I said, what's going on? And he went, oh, don't worry, this happens all the time. And I said, what do you mean? He said, oh, it's just them telling us that it's finished and not to add to it in case we mess it up. And it's kind of a round of applause sort of thing. And it's telling us just to go. And then he looked up and he said, okay, we've done our work now. You can go and do your work, which means that once we leave the circle, it's not ours anymore. And I said, who are you talking to, T? And he went, oh, I'm talking to that lot upstairs. And then he was so blasé about it because he'd done like 50 circles and he saw strange stuff all the time. And that was how I got into it. And then I started to go out and with other teams before I started to make my own as a team leader. And 5 times out of 10, something weird would happen.
So let me ask a question real quick. Wow. First of all, wow. I never knew that part. Like I said, I had heard about how crop circles years ago, and this is really before I was even into this area, but that it was debunked, that this was done by people, getting together in fields and stuff. But I never knew there was any stories of an actual connection with the UFO phenomena and the crop circles and people. So it sounds like to me that it's almost what you're saying is the UFOs were somewhat guiding these people to create these designs. Is that what you're saying? What was going on?
You're pretty close, but we think there's an interaction. And just to dive in a little bit deeper, sometimes you'll go to make a crop circle and then you'll find out that somebody else has done exactly that same design the night before in the same field that you're going to go to, or within 100 yards of that field. So that sort of stuff happens all the time. Or we'd have a dream. I had a situation once where I had a dream in which I was swooping over these 2 fields, and there were different crop circles in each field, and it was recurring, and the dream just wouldn't go. And in the dream, the person I was flying with was this guy that I used to go to school with that I hadn't heard of for like 30 years. And then I'd wake up and think, firstly, why am I flying over those 2 crop circles? And secondly, what the hell is this guy doing in my dream? I've got no reason to think of him. And then one day I was driving around Wiltshire and I took this wrong turn. And the words wrong turn, when you come into this phenomena, mean a different thing, because mistakes, are they mistakes? Really strange things happen. I took this wrong turn and I found myself looking at these 2 fields that were in my dream that I'd never seen before. And I turned round and I looked to see the name of the road that I'd driven down. And it was the name of the road, the same name of the road that my school friend had lived in 35, 40 years ago. And I thought, well, that's really strange. So I decided to make a crop circle, one of those designs, but I didn't have enough of a team to do both. So I phoned up my partner and I said, okay, I've got a choice of 2 designs here, completely different. They're the things in my dream. I've got to do one or the other. And she said, I don't know which one you should do. And I spoke to the team. They didn't know. So I decided just to go into the field with my team and submit myself like Luke Skywalker, just empty my mind and do whatever came first. So I got this crop circle down. And then the next morning, I got a phone call from my partner in London. And she said, geez, you were busy last night. I said, yeah, we got the circle down. I got one of them down. And she said, no, you didn't. And I said, yeah, I did. She goes, you got both of them down. And I went, what? And it turned out that the aerial view, if you'd have looked at it from the air, from Google Earth, you had 2 fields next to each other, which was separated by a hill. And in one field was my first crop circle, and in the other one was my other crop circle that I'd had in my dream that was made by a different team. And we didn't know about them, and we couldn't see them, and they didn't know about us, and they couldn't see us. So that's where the consciousness comes in, where we're thinking, is there something? It's not black and white, mate. There's something else going on. We think, there's an interaction.
Absolutely. I believe that 100% now. You're hearing a lot more stories where people have walked out, and there's almost like this psychic conscious connection with these things. Now, where do people originally get their plans, though? I mean, this is the circle I'm going to make. Where do they get this? How does that happen?
You're asking just amazing questions because it's just absolutely all fits in. We've got from April till September, okay? Because the first crop we get is that really horrible yellow canola stuff, and then it develops, and then you get the nice barley and you get the nice wheat, and then all the crop gets cut, okay? So we've got from the end of September or the middle of September right the way through to March to plan out what we're going to do next in the fields. But some contend that we're not actually designing these ourselves. There's something else going on. There's been instances where a crop circle team has got into an argument with another team because they'll say, "Where did you see my design? You've stolen that." Okay, and they go, "No, I've not shown this to. I've not." And then it turns out they just had the same idea. And what happens sometimes is we'll make a mistake on the design and we have to replicate the mistake 4 times to make it look as if it's deliberate. And then we find out afterwards that mistake is the most important part of that circle, and it has a direct significance to the date we made it or the place that we made it in.
Wow. So like it was meant to be, like something is guiding you guys to do this the way you're doing it. And
the thing is, Danny, this is the only, I'm not going to come here and say I've got all the answers. I've studied this for 40 years. And when I found out that people were responsible for the majority, because there's still some of those very simple circles that we can't account for. But when I came into the subject, I did look upon crop circle makers with disdain. I thought they were muddy in the whole thing. What I can't work out is whether the connection is between us using the collective consciousness or whether there's something else which is from above triangulating and, I hate to say channeling because we're not special. We're not anointed or special. We're just aligned to the phenomena, Most of the people I know that make crop circles that don't do it for a joke, we've all got some sort of interest, a pre-existing interest in ufology or the paranormal.
Well, I mean, that's a heck of a joke. And to be honest with you, there's easier jokes instead of going out and hanging out all night, and because that still seems like a lot of work.
Yeah, but Danny, there are still pranksters that do go out for that reason, just to laugh at people and just to go in the next day, see all the visitors that have come in and are just going, look at these idiots lying on the floor, with their juggling balls and their dowsing rods. But the other thing to realize is that we are making in these ancient Neolithic sites like Stonehenge, Avebury, and whenever because I've interviewed many circle makers, and I tend to find that the strangeness and the reports of paranormal and high strangeness dissipate the further away you get from these ancient sites. I've interviewed Italian circle makers and French circle makers, and I don't get any of the synchronicities or the dream stuff or the coincidence stuff that I get when I speak to people that make in the old Neolithic sites. And we think that the people that made Stonehenge, we are sort of kind of like, carrying on the tradition of our forebears without the heavy lifting, without doing our backs in lifting the rocks. So we think that there is a connection with these ancient sites where UFOs and UAP have been seen for hundreds of years, but they were called will-o'-the-wisps or fairy lights,
Yes.
The UAPs, Danny, are there anyway. Okay, it just seems to be that the crop circles kind of exacerbate the energy in the area, if you see what I mean.
So that night, though, that was your first night out there, and then you look up and you see these UFOs, and they're like, this happens all the time.
Well, they were at, they were at waist level, Danny. Okay, so they weren't
Oh,
in the
wow.
sky. They were at waist level, and they were like magnesium flares. They were like looking at ball bearings that are on fire. Okay, so
Wow.
when I said to you they were at the perimeter of the circle, they were at our level. Okay, that's why I thought it was people crouching down in the crop taking photographs. But there have been instances. There's certainly one, because the other thing is, Danny, around here we've got a massive concentration of military bases, and it's just very odd that we've got these ancient sites and then we've got these massive military bases nearby. And the first time I went out after that experience, we saw this. As soon as we got into the field to make this circle, we saw a pink light flash on straight away, and I thought, that's a chopper. We've had it, And then I thought, hold on, I can't hear any rotor blades. Then you realise it's not a chopper, and then that pink light was in the air, hundreds of feet up, and it was there for the duration of us making the crop circle. And the second we finished it, it went poof, and it blinked, and it's like it was babysitting us. It blinked and it went out. But conversely, the time I went out after that, I saw a pink light and thought, oh, nice, it's a UFO. And then it was a chopper, and it actually almost landed in the circle we were making. So we ran a mile. We think that it probably saw the heat from our car engine where it was just warming down. And we ran so fast out of there that we actually left our boards in there. We had to go and get them the next day. So we know that the military have got certainly an interest, whether they're just laughing at us just to spook us, but there's some sort of connection there as well.
Wow. So, do you think the military bases were on to what's going on with this phenomena as well? Is that what you were saying? Or
well, the crop circle phenomena didn't really start in earnest in this country until sort of the very early 80s, late 70s, whereas those military bases have been there for forever. Okay, but don't forget, we had Stonehenge, we had Avebury, and we had a lot of weird stuff. And if you speak to the locals, they say we see weird lights in the sky as if it's like natural for them. It's complete. They've seen them for generations. So that weirdness is happening whether the crop circles are there or not. But it just seems, that the military have been there a long time.
Where did the crop circles be? Was it in the United States, or was it?
No, there's reports of them being seen by pilots in the war, but the phenomena proper didn't really start until the 1970s in Australia, where it was flattened grass over there. They were called tully nests, and they looked like the birthed UFOs. And then we started to see it because being in crop, it's a lot more exaggerated because, the crop is a couple of feet high. So it's a lot more, there's a lot more resolution there. It's a lot more refined and defined than in grass. But they really started in about 1979, 1980. But
well, probably possibly even go, way much further than that there could be some type of correlation with, is it Peru, where the
NASA lines. The parallels are incredible. I honestly believe, but I mean, people say that there's portals in those lines, don't they? In NASA,
which I just find that mind blowing that we would do something like that. I mean, why would we do it if there wasn't a reason? If we didn't feel like something, very strongly was watching us from above?
Well, as I said to you, when I first became interested, if I hadn't been asked out by that team, the compulsion for me to make it was so strong that I'd have probably gone out and done it very, very badly myself. Okay. So there is that pull, and I can't understand if that pull is between human beings in the collective consciousness or if there's something else going on.
Well, like I said, I'm a big believer in that, and there's people said that they can step outside, in their backyard and ask for these things to appear, and they appear. A lot of schools.
I think you're right. My opinion, especially probably my favourite ufologist is probably John Keel. I love his work, and what he says, certainly in ufology, certainly with ufology, if you are aligned to it, you kind of attract it. So
Yes.
you're more likely to see it. Of course, the other argument says, oh well, that means you're going to misappropriate and mis-ID stuff. But I think there's some deeper spiritual element to the UFO question. Then I don't think it's as simple as the ETH and nuts, the extraterrestrial hypothesis and nuts and bolts craft. I think the more diverse and the more leading ufologists are really saying that this is something actually connecting deeply with our consciousness, especially if you look at somebody like Jacques Vallée, who spoke about cultural tracking, where he says that where we used to see fairies taking people away, now we're seeing greys taking people away. It's the same thing, but it's adapting to where we are within our evolution, if you see what I mean.
There were some things I was really thinking about. One thing I wonder why we see greys the way we see them. One thing you noticed, and somebody had brought this up and made a point that, I think evolution has kind of ingrained us to have our guards up to certain things, certain faces, the way they look. And serpents and snakes and things without ears and nose and, funny looking eyes, diamond shaped eyes. And you can kind of compare that to the grays that a lot of people see. And it makes me wonder, are the grays, is it something, not saying they don't exist, because I think that there's something there with the grays because too many people see the same exact thing. But, you hear the bad stories about the grays is what I hear. A lot of the alien abductions and stuff. And I wonder if there's a reason why we see them the way we do as a danger and a threat.
I think it totally connects what I've just said to you, in that if it's something which is tracking where we are in our evolution, it will present to us in the fashion which we expect to see it. Okay?
Exactly.
Because if you look at some of the strange UFO reports, the greys will say, would you like to see me in my true form? I've heard
that. I've heard situations. I've also heard situations where they have approached people not looking anything at all the way they do. I've heard several different stories. I just found that very interesting. But and also, I do want to say is people, my doors are open, my windows are open. So I feel like personally, I'm a sensitive person to, if you want to call it paranormal, if you want to call it to these things. I've had a lot of encounters and a lot of experiences. And I think it's because I am paying more attention. I mean, if you're always looking down, you're never going to know what's going on above you. So, but I tell you what, let's do this real quick, D. I do want to dig in a little deeper. I've got some more questions, for you. Like I said, this is, very interesting. I had no clue that the crop circles kind of went this in depth on UFOs. I thought it was just all debunked and, thrown under the rug. But I tell you what, guys, hang tight. We're going to be right back. We got to cut to a break to our sponsor, but we'll be right back after these messages here with D. So hang tight. We'll be right back.
Are you an experiencer of unknown phenomena? Do you consider yourself a paranormal journalist? Do you investigate strange sightings in the sky? Or do you study the expansion of the human mind? You are not alone. Welcome to TESA, a one-stop shop that offers multiple services to experiencers. Place where we can work together. Place for us to learn. Place for us to grow. A place for us to change the world. Join us today.
Have you ever wondered, or maybe just thought to yourself, if there were others just like you? You know, people with extraordinary abilities, psychogenic advancement, and perhaps unique intuitions. Maybe you just wondered if there were other people who experienced unimaginable, unexplained, or even unusual and paranormal events. Are there people who have more questions, more fears than answers? Well, you're not alone. You've never been alone. We believe you. Sign up for EA today.
It's not the strongest species, nor the most intelligent that survive, but the ones that are most adaptive to change. Join us for Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, live on YouTube, Facebook, and wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't miss live interviews on Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, the latest declassified Canadian UFO documents, or an inside look at groundbreaking investigations. Subscribe on YouTube today for free.
If you want to really find out about Ryan, ask him about all his work and UFOs in Ontario.
Ryan is one of Canada's leading new UFO investigators. He conducts and oversees UFO investigations on a constant basis. He's compiled a tremendous amount of data regarding UFOs in Canada.
I have used his research extensively. He's much more than a one-dimensional character. He's an authority on UFOs and investigating them, Meg.
Wow!
Really goes over how UFO investigations are done and what are some of the mistakes that people make when they submit evidence. For starters, don't edit your videos or photos before you send them.
He would come out with an annual report on not only the number of sightings, but how many were unexplained, unknown, or just, nothing could be said. What caused it?
If you want to hear more follow-up conversation between Ryan and myself, you can go to richardolanmembers.com, where we have a candid conversation on ufology, the paranormal, and more. And remember, while we learn and grow and search for the truth, let's be good to each other.
All right, guys, if you're just now joining us, we have D. He's a former crop circle maker. And also, kind of, I don't know if we touched base on this, but D is also kind of wanting his identity kind of hidden here because, crop circle making is not legal. It is not.
It's not just that. That's a big reason because it's you can get prosecuted by the farmer, even years on. But what's also important is that this is an ego thing. We want the crop circles to be talking rather than the artist talking. Okay, so that's why we don't. The second that you admit to a certain crop circle, it kind of gets deactivated. All the mystery and magic comes out of it. So that's there's like nothing sinister. It's just us saying, look at the subject rather than the person, if that makes sense. Yeah.
This is something that I can't help but wonder. But so, and how many years have you been a part of this now, D? Now, for how long?
I've been studying crop circles since sort of the mid '80s, and then I started sort of late '90s. But I went in as 100% believer. I thought these things were made by ET, or they were made by, I didn't know what they were. I just thought, I thought it can't be people. That's why I call my Substack "It Can't Be People," because you just kind of like it's when you walk into a crop circle, you see how complex they are. You just go, this can't be people, and then obviously you realise that people are very, very clever.
Oh yeah. Well, one thing I say about people, this is what this is just in our DNA. This is what we do. If tell man he can't do something, and he will do it.
Absolutely right. And what as I came out of the subject, what the last few I made, I look at them now and think, I don't know how I was there. I think I was so deeply entrenched. I look at it now and think, I don't think I could do that now. But it's still a very contentious subject to say that people make crop circles, because unfortunately that UFO, you've got the thing with a lot of these people where they want to believe so much that it's not people. They think it's black or white. It's not black and white. There's something else going on, but they want to believe so much that people aren't involved.
No topic. First of all, I don't think there's any topic. Very few topics. I can't think of one that is black and white, and especially when it comes to the UFO community, it's no pun intended, but a lot of gray area.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, and it sounds like to me though that people are making these things, but they're also being guided by something else in power. Like there's a connection there now. So let me ask you, because this is it. So if this is the case, if these crop circles are being made and UFOs are guiding human beings to make these things, and because clearly there's some very supernatural things happening when you're making a crop circle, and then somebody in your dream is making the same exact crop circle. Why? Why are they having us do these? What is going on? I mean, like we all know them. I love this movie, the movie Signs, Mel Gibson, Joaquin Phoenix. And it turns out it was like almost like, what was the point of the signs? Was it like for like a mapping or some type of code that they were using? Why do you think this is going on?
J. Allen Hynek is like the father of ufology, said, even if we had the answer in front of our noses presented to us, we are probably not advanced enough to understand it. Now, why is the big thing in that? I had an example, just a very quick example. I had no idea what to put in the field once. Okay, so I made up this kooky little design on the back of a cigarette packet, and I thought, well, if I get this wrong, no one's got anything to compare it to, so it doesn't matter. All right, so I did this kooky little design, put it in the field, and the next day we were at breakfast with the team, and then there was a guy. It was like a school dinner thing where you got the long benches that you had in the school halls. This guy said, "Budge up," and he sat next to me. I looked at him, and his shirt was just covered in this design that I'd done. Okay, and then you think, what does it all mean? I don't understand. Something's happening, but we don't understand what it is. But there's also other examples. I've got this very quickly. I've got a friend who was in bed one night, and at midnight he was jolted awake, and he was told he had to go to this field to make this crop circle, and he couldn't rustle up a team because it was midnight. And he had this very clear pulsing image of what he had to make, and he got his kit together. He walked down the road. It's about a mile away, the site. He tried to go into a certain field, and he had nausea, and this thing was saying to him, not that field, don't try and trick us. And he made this crop circle in this field, and he basically fell asleep at the end of it because he was so tired. And then the next day there was a bunch of girls freaking out, standing in his crop circle that he made like 5 hours before, and he got up and pretended that he just had a nap in the morning under a tree or something. And it turned out that these girls were like druids or Wiccans or something, and they'd meditated on this design in this field, and it was what he'd made. And he said, "When did you start meditating?" And they said, "Well, midnight, of course, because that's when Wicca's at its strongest." And that's when you think again, why? There's some interaction there, but we don't understand what it's all about. That's the only. It's the same as Stonehenge. Why is it there? Why spend that manpower and that effort of holding those rocks to that place? We just don't know.
So technically, and this guy just had the man. Yeah, I don't know. That's kind of a bummer though. Instead of abduction, they make you go do hard labor. The
yeah, he didn't see any owls, no. Yeah, but it just seems to be like a reaction. There's something else at play, and it's not black and white. It's not. It's this. The fact that it's humans shouldn't disappoint you. It should actually make the mystery a lot deeper, because something else is happening.
So, okay, now you're a former. You don't do it anymore. You don't.
I don't do it anymore. I don't. But I went to see a friend in Avebury a couple of years ago in broad daylight, and I said, "I've got this pull. I could do it again." But I was so compelled to do it, and I made about 25, I think it was.
So you don't think, D, it's something to do? But here's something though. I mean, to kind of back on the debunking kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so kind of the statement you said there, like it could almost be like a crazy rock climber kind of thing. There's a thrill that you get by going out and making these things. And not getting caught, and it's different than just going up and knocking on someone's door and running away or stealing a pumpkin on Halloween. You're actually going out there and creating this really nice, piece of art and not getting caught, almost like, you got the taggers in the cities and stuff. So do you think there's like a rush that do you think that may have something into doing with this?
I've written it in my Substack that the cloak and dagger clandestine element of it, like, we really shouldn't be here, but we really should, so
absolutely.
So on the earthly plane, you shouldn't be there, but on the spiritual plane, you should be there. It's funny because I had a friend who was he wasn't in the police force, but he was something close to the police force, and he was making crop circles. And we used to joke with him and say, "Look, the guys upstairs don't care what your job is downstairs. If you're supposed to do it, you're supposed to do it." But I think you're right. It really was the cloak and dagger element of it. There was a rush to do it, and especially as I was making it to see if I could see any more supernatural stuff. That was my main pull.
Well, see, and let's be honest, that's the really cool part of this conversation. That's why everyone tunes in. That's why we're here. So, when was your last encounter with something supernatural? Did you see the lights? Was there ever something that really, really sticks out?
What do you mean in the creation process, or just generally? Because
in the creation process, or you having that first encounter is absolutely amazing. That would have blew my mind. But
yeah, that was because it was at waist level. That's what got me, because you're not used to seeing UAPs that close. And I'll tell you what is interesting. This didn't happen to me, but somebody said to me that when they saw this UAP phenomenon thing, they saw it looked like a ball bearing, like you see. He said, but the thing was, from a perspective point of view, it was at the end of the field, about 200 yards away. And he said, but as it grew closer, where it should have got bigger and should have ended up as like the size of a bus by the time it got to him, it was the same size all the way from the edge of the field to go into him. It was almost as if that it's functioning on a different plane to us, So that was really weird. He said he could have reached out and picked it up and put it in his pocket. It was like that close. And he said there seemed to be an intelligence in it as well. He said that what was it. That's what was interesting. He said it seems to be playful. It's very hard to explain. But he said there seemed to be a sentience to it. I'm not saying it was a piloted UFO. It's only a tiny little thing. But he said he had the impression that it was kind of spiritual. It's very hard to explain, Danny. But I'm really, from the ufology point of view, I'm at the point now where I don't think this is out of space. I don't think it's out of space. I don't think it's ET. I think it's something far closer to home. And I think it's something which is coexisting with us and manifesting itself so that we think that it's what you said before, Greys and ET. I think it's something which is coexisting with us on where we are now, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. And so what do you think? I mean, so like, do you think it's ever going to reveal the purpose of this? Do you think it's coming soon? Because right now it's a heck of a time to be into UFOs with all the UAP phenomenon going on and in the news, and with Congress. It's really, I never thought I would ever see a time like that.
I know what you're saying, but you see, people talk about a slow disclosure program, which has existed since Close Encounters. That was the first thing. But unfortunately, I've studied this for a very, very, very long time. And I saw Jacques Vallée. You know who Jacques Vallée is? He was the guy that the French guy was based on in Close Encounters. I saw him lecture in 1990 doing for the British UFO Research Association. And unfortunately, Danny, we were having that same conversation in 1990 where this guy was saying, we're so close to disclosure. And he said, it's not going to happen within our lifetime. That was his opinion. But what was interesting there, he blew my mind actually, because he was talking about USOs, and it's the first time I'd heard about USOs. And he pulled up this. They were just starting to do the Google Earth pictures. This is like 1990, and they'd found this Russian photograph, an aerial photograph. It was like thousands of miles covered, but he zeroed in on this reservoir, and you could see the rim of a metallic craft going in or coming out of this reservoir with water coming off of it. So that was a genuine picture as far as I was concerned. So, and we were all going, we're so close. And Vallée said, no, he can't, because he was worried about what the wider implications would be to the populace.
I just, at this point, I mean, I just wonder if that's still the case. Prior generations, yeah, absolutely, it would just rock a lot of things. But and I hear a lot of stories like, if we had access to that type of energy and we haven't figured out a way to get rich off of it, that may have something to do with it. A lot of cases, from what I found, if you do follow the dollar, you get your answer on everything. And
I think it's a little bit like JFK in that if you'd have asked anyone about a lone shooter in 1963, we would there wouldn't be a discussion. Whereas people that knew me in the 80s and 90s who were laughing at me for being a ufologist and now saying to me, "Is there something in this? Really?" Yeah, you've got this paradigm shift. They used to laugh at me, and now they're going, I think there's something in this. Okay, well, obviously I'm 3 decades in front of you, and you wouldn't understand. It would take too long,
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot. I mean, most people you can stop and talk to and they're like, well, yeah, I mean, they're not as aware and, informed as much as we are, but most people be like, yeah, there's a strong possibility that that's real, that this is happening.
The only obstacle I can see there is they always come up with the example of, oh yeah, well there must be life on other planets, the statistics, and I go, I'm so far beyond that thinking now.
Exactly.
That I don't think it's that trope that's there,
Well, on the consciousness stuff, I'm big into that. And that's something that I think there's a reason why our brains work the way they do, folks. Okay. It's just, we're just not here existing, going to our dumb little day jobs and going home and watching our favorite program and, stuffing our faces and going to bed. There's something there's another level to existence that unfortunately we've been taught to dumb down, not pay attention to, not notice. I don't know why. Maybe we can't be little worker bees when we do that. I don't know. But I do believe you when you say that you felt like, during the crop circles that you was almost a sense of guidance. I believe that, whatever's going on has been here a very long time, may have been here before us.
It's ancient. And the first time that I walked into a crop circle as a believer, before I started making them, I had this sense of being in this beautiful field in a very, very ancient, very important site, thinking it's very profound, Danny, what I had, but I had this feeling that probably would have been there had it not been a crop circle. I think just standing in the area, I suddenly had this profound feeling of, I once knew what this meant, but it's just beyond my grasp. It's like you're thinking from the collective consciousness, but you're thinking, we used to know all this.
Yeah.
And
exactly. Now it's gone, and I'm sure it can be. I mean, I'm sure there's a way of tapping back into that and maybe learning more. There's some, and here's something else to throw out there with this whole situation. Maybe we are the aliens. Maybe we actually, are foreign to this planet. One thing to think about that I always throw out there, out of everything on this rock, we're the only things that have to cook its food first.
Yeah,
kind of weird. This is home, but it's got some really odd things when you really start to think about it. Well, let me ask you, D. Now, like I said, I know you want to remain private, and we're going to respect that 100% here at Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. But is there anything like maybe you would like to plug or put out there that if anybody was more interested in learning more about your story, they can find you?
Really, that's really kind of you. I've got a book in progress where I'm collating reports from crop circle makers of high strangeness events. It's not ready. I'm getting more and more interest in it from other circle makers. But in the meantime, I've got a Substack which you can subscribe to for the grand fee of nothing, and I update once every week or 2 weeks, and I'll say an account of a strange event that's happened to a crop circle maker, and that is itcantbepeople.substack.com, and I update, and I'm open to dialogue and answering any questions there as well. It's friendly and free.
That is awesome. And, and like I said, I never knew that people who were out there doing these things had, experiences, UFO experiences and encounters. I always thought it was just, like you said, the pranksters out there pulling jokes, just wanting to get a quick little laugh. But
yeah, but the reason for that is, Danny, because the narrative that sells it is the UFO. That's what sells the industry. Okay, people suppress this part of the mystery, which is probably the most interesting part, but people don't want to hear it, and that's why my voice is quite a quiet one. There's not many people getting through, coming back with these accounts. But what I say is, the second that you insert people into the mystery, if you're brave enough to insert people into the mystery, and we do say there are some crop circles we can't explain, but if you put people into the mystery, it's far, far more interesting than landed craft in corn. That's how I'd close, really.
Absolutely. Well, I love that, D. Thank you so much for coming on Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. This has been more than interesting. We would definitely have to get you back on here because I don't think we've had enough time to cover all the questions and everything that we can about this topic. But D, thank you so much for coming on Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. This has been fantastic.
That's a pleasure, Danny, and to your listeners as well. Thank you very much indeed, my friend.
All right, guys. Like I said, this was a very interesting episode. I believe this is the first time we had anyone on discussing the topic of crop circles. It's a phenomenon that, like I said, started long ago. I remember seeing pictures in the Time Life books as a kid, thinking, what is that? Wow, this big mystery. And then there was a time where they, I feel like it was debunked, and this was just something done by, hoaxsters. But now, and because of our, tonight's guest, Dee, we know that, no, there's actually more to it. And if you are a follower of this podcast, then you know that we do talk about the conscious connection with the paranormal and UFOs. So that's, that sounds very likely, it's very likely that that's what's going on. There's something more out there guiding these people to do these things. And will we ever get the answer? I don't know. It can be, there's times that it looks like it's going great and we're getting somewhere. Then there's times that feel like, we'll know we're not getting anywhere. So that's the frustrations about this, this topic that seems to interest us so much. Guys, if you have not done so, please head over to our Patreon page, Heed the World, and make a little donation. That'll get you access to some very interesting articles by Ryan Stacy at theexperiencersupport.org. Also, if you have not, please subscribe to this podcast. We are everywhere. We're on Spotify, Apple, anywhere you listen to podcasts. So be sure to give us a follow on one of those platforms. And also, if you're watching on YouTube, or if you happen to be watching later, be sure to like it, because smash the like button, because apparently that goes a long ways too. So, but definitely do that. Guys, like always, we are broadcasting live from the E-United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 105.3 FM on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. And guys, if you will, tell your friends, tell your sisters, tell your cats, tell your dogs, tell your parakeets to give us a follow. We need to love. And like always, guys, it's been a fantastic show. I will see you guys next Tuesday, same time, 7 p.m. Eastern streaming. You guys tune in and catch us next week. We'll have an interesting guest. I'm your host, Danny Whitson, and this has been Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. See you later, Paranormal Junkies. All right, that does it for this episode of Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. A big shout out for tonight's awesome guest, and a bigger shout out for everyone who tuned in. And if you haven't done so yet, be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube or wherever it is you listen to your podcasts. And like always, be sure to stay curious, heed the world, and keep the paranormal normal. I'm your host, Danny Whitson, and this has been Beyond the Tinfoil Hat.